Hey everyone, and welcome to Punnett Square practice. I know we went over it in class, but we are going to begin by reviewing the vocabulary. First, an allele, an alternate form of a gene, one part of the pair. Each letter individually is considered an allele. Two of them together is considered a gene, or genotype. Genotype, the genetic makeup of an organism. Phenotype, the physical appearance of an organism, or the trait, the actual trait, physical appearance. Dominant, what is more likely to occur. Don't forget, when you have the dominant allele, you have the dominant trait. Recessive, what is less likely to occur. Remember, the only way to have a recessive trait is to have two recessive alleles. Homozygous, remember the prefix homo means same. When something is homozygous, you must follow it with dominant or recessive so you know how to write the two alleles. Homozygous dominant, represented with two capital alleles. Homozygous recessive, represented with two lowercase alleles. Heterozygous, when each allele is different. When using heterozygous, or when an organism is heterozygous, you do not have to follow it with dominant or recessive. You know that it is one each, a dominant allele and a recessive allele. Now on to our problem. Our problem, in garden pea plants, tall plants are dominant, capital T, and short plants are recessive, lowercase t. A pea plant that is homozygous dominant for height is crossed with one that is homozygous recessive for plant height. Here are the steps that we're going to take to solve this problem. First, we will draw a Punnett square to represent the problem. I'll give you a second to write that down. Next, we're going to find out what are the possible phenotypes. Then we're going to list the parents, and we'll represent them with P1 and P2. We will place the parent genotypes around the Punnett square. Top down, sides across. We will find the probability for each genotype, and we'll find the probability for each phenotype. Pause here if you need to write these steps down. On to the problem. Step 1, draw your Punnett square. Make sure to leave some room over to the right as we're going to use this area. Step 2, what are the possible phenotypes? Well, up here we see that tall is the trait, and it's the dominant trait, represented with the capital T, and short is the recessive trait, represented with a lowercase t. Write those up high on the right of your Punnett square. Capital T, tall, little t, short. Next step, list the parents. When you're looking at a problem for the parents, try to find keywords. In this one, crossed is the P word. We know that they are crossing two individuals to see what their offspring will be. The first individual is homozygous, homo, same, dominant. So it will be two capital T's. And the second parent is homozygous, homo, same, recessive, so two lowercase t's. We're going to list those over on the right-hand side as well. So genotypes of parents, P1, homozygous dominant, P2, homozygous recessive. Next, we'll place the parent genotypes around the Punnett square. We're going to take parent 1 and place them across the top, kind of centering them over each square. We're going to take parent 2 and put them along the side, kind of the center of each square. Double check, make sure you've not confused anything. You've got parent 1 correct, parent 2 correct. Next is top down, sides across. Top down, sides across, we're going to take each one of the alleles on top from parent 1 and we're going to drop them into the boxes below them. All right, we do this individually, working only with the top, because we don't want eye bounce. We don't want our eyes bouncing back and forth. This is a way to prevent errors. So parent 1, or this allele, is dropped down and down, and then this allele is dropped down and down. Then it's sides across. We're going to take this allele and take it all the way across into both boxes. Then we're going to take this allele and take it all the way across into both boxes. All right. Ready to move on? Okay. Now we're going to read the Punnett Square. This is where remembering our language that we learned comes in handy. First, we're going to find the probability of each genotype. Remember that when we're talking about genotype, we're talking about two alleles. And how do we talk about that? This is homozygous dominant. This is homozygous recessive. So let's go read the boxes. Now, the purpose of the Punnett Square is to determine the probability of all combinations of offspring that these two parents could have. So in this instance, this child would be big T little t, which is heterozygous. This child, also big T little t, heterozygous. Big T little t, heterozygous. Big T little t, heterozygous. Now remember, when calculating the percentages, it's just like adding 4 quarters to a dollar. One box is 25, two boxes 50, three boxes 75, and in this case, we have all 4 boxes 100% heterozygous. Now on to the next step. What is the probability for each phenotype? Remember, the phenotype is the trait. We check ourselves, we go over here, which is why we put this here. Our traits are dominant trait, big T, tall, recessive trait, little t, short. So let's go here. We have a dominant allele. That means they're going to have the dominant trait, so this child will be tall. Dominant allele, which means this child will also be tall. Dominant allele, which means this child will also be tall. And dominant allele, which means this child will also be tall. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 100% tall. So to sum up, here are the steps you must take to solve a Punnett Square. Please don't skip steps. At the end of every Punnett Square problem, no matter how they represent it on the computer or how it's represented on the page, on your paper, it should look like this. Your phenotypes listed, your genotypes for the parents listed, your Punnett Square done, top down, sides across, with your probabilities listed for genotypes and phenotypes. Only after you've completed these steps do you begin to try and solve whatever question they have given you. Don't forget to tune in for video 2. At the end of video 2 is your homework assignment that you'll bring to class. Thanks, and I hope you enjoyed it.